Hello students, Phil the Philosophical Rooster here, and I'm here to teach you about how the United States obtained Oregon Territory from England. This topic is called 5440 or Fight. It's a popular slogan that was used as in the election of James K. Polk when he became president in 1844. So you'll learn more about that as the video goes on. So let's start where all good things start, at the beginning, with the Oregon Territory dispute. As you can see from the map here, the Oregon country, which is kind of shaded in that reddish color, was a disputed territory between England and the United States. Both countries claimed it was theirs. England, as you can see here, was in control of what we now know as Canada. The Oregon Territory, actually, the dispute, the map cuts off here. This disputed territory goes way up into the what we know as Canada, all the way up to where Alaska is today. So it was a rather large area of land that was disputed. In 1818, the United States and England reached some form of agreement that said that we were going to jointly occupy this Oregon country. So it was going to be sort of owned by both countries at the same time. This was only a temporary solution, as obviously land owned by two countries would be rather confusing. Like, which country's laws do you follow? And people that live there, which country are they citizens of? All of those basic questions would have to be answered eventually. But in 1818, to avoid war and other disputes, England and the United States decided to jointly occupy this territory. In 1830s, the American citizens decided to start to move out into this territory in huge numbers, starting with a group of people called missionaries who were going to spread the Christian message to indigenous people like Native Americans living in Oregon country. So in the 1830s, they start to move out there, and the United States citizens start to outnumber the British citizens living in Oregon country, which is going to foreshadow some things to come. All right, so let's move on here. You guys may have heard of something called the Oregon Trail. Well, about 10 years after Americans start to move out to Oregon, this thing called Oregon fever starts to sweep the country. In the 1840s, settlers start to move to Oregon in droves on what is called the Oregon Trail. You see this picture of wagon trains. That is what it looked like, as literally tens, if not hundreds of thousands of American citizens start to move from east to west into Oregon. This is going to further complicate this joint ownership of Oregon country, because the United States is going to far outnumber the British citizens living in Oregon. So the story really starts to come to a head in 1844. James K. Polk is a presidential candidate. During this presidential election, he's virtually unknown. Most people figure he has no shot at the presidency. There was another candidate who was very well known, and most people thought that this other candidate was going to win. I believe it was Calhoun, but it may have been Henry Clay. Polk realizes that if he's going to win, he's going to have to come up with some type of message that the American people are going to want. So Polk realizes that manifest destiny is an important topic to the American people. As you can see from the definition on the right, manifest destiny was the widely held belief in the United States that was destined to expand through the entire continent. So Oregon country, being on the west coast, stood in the way of our manifest destiny. If we wanted to go from east coast to west coast and to achieve what many people thought was our destiny, we had to get Oregon as part of our territory. So James K. Polk in 1844 uses this slogan, 5440 or Fight. It refers to a line of longitude and latitude on the map, meaning that we would get the Oregon country up to the 5440 parallel, or we would fight England for this territory. People rallied behind Polk and his message. They loved the fact that he was willing to fight for manifest destiny, and he was elected president in 1844. Here is a picture that kind of shows you manifest destiny. You see the angel kind of going over to the west. That's representing like God's will, that the United States owns all of the territory from east coast to west coast. That sort of illustrates the belief that many Americans had in the 1840s. Okay, so here's a quote from Polk. The world has nothing to fear from military ambition in our government. He said this because obviously he is threatening war with England in his election. He is also threatening war with Mexico, as you will learn in our next topic. So Polk is kind of a bit of a warmongering president, so he said this quote to make people feel better about his military ambitions as president. Okay, so the problem that James K. Polk has, he gets elected president, he says, we're going to fight for this territory, but he can say a lot of this talk, but can he actually back it up? Actually, the fighting with England was a little bit over the top. England still had the biggest navy in the world. Another war would be a huge challenge. As we will learn in the next topic, Polk is also sort of plotting a war with Mexico. You really cannot fight two wars with two different countries at the same time. That would be a rather, well, dumb idea. So Polk is really secretly willing to compromise on this 54-40 or fight slogan. He's willing to make a deal with England. He just has to get England to agree to this compromise and avoid war with them. In the end, James K. Polk, he basically brazenly declares that the U.S. will own Oregon within 1 year. He's almost like bluffing to this point. He's saying, hey, England, we're going to own this territory. We're willing to fight you, even though he is not willing to fight. England laughs and is confident in victory because they still have a huge army. But in the end, the United States outnumbers England by 6-1 in the Oregon Territory. England does not realize, but all these people coming from east to west on the Oregon Trail and the Christian missionaries that came over in the 1830s and 1840s, they actually give the United States a huge manpower edge. So once England takes stock of the situation, they realize that, well, although they might be able to go to war, it would be a very taxing war with the United States. So England agrees to a compromise. All that talk from James K. Polk makes them back down, almost like a Jedi mind trick. Oregon is split at the 49th parallel, so Polk does not get everything he wants. He gives some things back to England, so we split Oregon, where we know the border with Canada is today. And this happens in June 1846. So conflict is avoided, and more importantly, the United States adds what is now Oregon, Washington, and Idaho to their territory officially. It's no longer joint occupied with England. It is now United States territory. So the 54-40 or fight slogan becomes sort of reality because we do get a big chunk of that territory, just not all of it. So that is the story of James K. Polk in Oregon, and we will be doing some more work with this in a project that you'll be completing following this video.